All right, boys and girls, we're ready to start our new shared read. Make sure that you have your Reader's Writer's Companion book, a pencil, and open up to page 104. This week's shared read is called Every Vote Counts. The genre of this shared read is expository text. An expository text teaches you facts and information about a certain topic. Let's listen to the summary to learn more about the topic that we're going to be learning about. We'll first listen to it in English, then in Spanish.
Every vote counts. This story is expository text. Voting is an important right in the U.S. A big problem is that only 6 out of every 10 Americans vote. Many people think voting is confusing or too difficult. Kids Voting USA teaches kids why voting is important and how to vote.
Cada voto cuenta. Este es un texto explicativo. Votar es un derecho importante en los Estados Unidos. Un problema grande es que solamente 6 de cada 10 estadounidenses votan. Mucha gente piensa que votar es muy confuso y difícil. Kids Voting USA enseña a los niños la importancia de votar y cómo hacerlo.
So, now that we've listened to the summary, we have a pretty good idea of what this expository text is going to be teaching us. We're going to be learning about why voting is important. Let's take a look at the essential question. How can people make government work? Read about a group that teaches kids the power of voting. Let's get started reading our text. Then we'll stop and answer questions along the side. Follow along in your Reader's Writer's Companion book and write and underline the things that we do together on the screen.
Have you ever voted? Maybe you voted to choose a class pet. Maybe your family voted on which movie to see. If you have ever voted, then you know how good it feels. Voting is important. It tells people what you think. Many years ago, the leaders of our country wanted to know what people thought too. They wrote a plan for our government. It is called the Constitution. It gives men and women in the United States the right to vote. Each year, people who are 18 years and older pick new leaders. They also vote on new laws. Voting gives Americans the power to choose.
Over here, it says find text evidence. Read paragraph 1. So we're going to find our answer in the first paragraph. Remember, every paragraph starts with a large space that's called an indent. So on this page, there are 3 paragraphs. 1, 2, 3. We're going to focus in the first one to find the answer that says, author's point of view. What does the author think is important about voting? Draw a box around text evidence. So let's go back and reread this first paragraph. It says, have you ever voted? Maybe you voted to choose a class pet. Maybe your family voted on which movie to see. If you have ever voted, then you know how good it feels. Voting is important. It tells people what you think. So these last 2 sentences in this paragraph sound a lot like the question. The question asks what the author thinks is important about voting. And then it says voting is important. It tells people what you think. So I'm going to draw a box around these last 2 sentences to answer the question. Go ahead and draw the box around those sentences in your book too. The next question says paragraphs 2 through 3. So that's 2 and 3. Remember, you can always go back and number your paragraphs if that helps you to keep track. Reread. The question says, What is the Constitution? Circle text evidence that tells what it is. Underline text that tells what it does. Write what it does here. So this question has multiple parts. It's asking what the Constitution is, but then it's telling us to do 3 things to answer that question. First, we have to circle the text evidence that tells what it is, then underline what it does, and then write that on the line. So let's start rereading paragraphs 2 and 3 to search for our answers. Many years ago, the leaders of our country wanted to know what people thought too. They wrote a plan for our government. It is called the Constitution. So it's talking about the Constitution here, and it says that they wrote a plan for our government. So I'm going to circle this sentence because it's telling me what it is. It's a plan. So I'm going to go ahead and circle a plan for our government. The Constitution is a plan for our government. So now that we circled that, now we have to keep reading to find what it does. It is called the Constitution. It gives men and women in the United States the right to vote. Well, would you look at that? After it tells us that it's a plan and what it's called, it tells us what it does. It gives men and women in the United States the right to vote. Go ahead and underline that sentence too. Let's keep reading. Each year, people who are 18 years and older pick new leaders. So that's part of voting, picking new leaders. So I'm going to underline pick new leaders. Go ahead and underline that too. They also vote on new laws. So now not only are they voting for new leaders, but they're voting on new laws. Go ahead and underline that part. Voting gives Americans the power to choose. So it also gives them the power to choose. So let's underline gives Americans the power to choose. So look at all these ways that the Constitution helps Americans. It gives people the right to vote, which helps to pick new leaders, vote on new laws, and it gives Americans the power to choose these things. So let's answer the question with this sentence. It gives Americans the right to choose their leaders and laws by voting. Go ahead and write this down. Pause the video if you need more time. So now that we've read the whole page, I want to go back to talking about where it says that you may have had experiences voting, whether it's in the classroom or at home. And it says that voting is a way for you to tell people what you think, but it's also a way to give you power to choose. Because if you want something, if you just tell people what you think without voting for what you want, then it doesn't make a change in the decision. You have to vote to influence or make a change in a decision. For example, if you're at home and you have to decide what you want to eat for dinner, you have to tell people what you want so it can help influence the decision of where you go. If you don't tell anybody that you really want pizza, and then you don't get pizza, well, you didn't tell anybody. So how are they supposed to know? When you vote, you express your thoughts, what you want, and it gives you the power to choose. Let's move on to the next page of our story.
Teaching kids to vote. Did you know that only about 6 out of every 10 Americans vote? That's sad. Some people think that voting is too hard. They are unsure where to go to vote. They think it takes too much time. Now a group called Kids Voting USA is trying to convince everyone to vote. Kids Voting USA teaches kids that voting is important. The group gives teachers lessons to use in their classrooms. First, kids read stories and do fun activities about government. They also learn how to choose and elect a good leader. Election day is here. First, we sign in. Then we mark a ballot. Finally, we vote.
Great. Let's start working on our questions along the side. The first question says paragraph 1. So that's where we're going to search for our answers. The question asks, how does the author feel about people not voting? Well, the author says that 6 out of 10 people do not vote, and then says, that's sad. So I can tell that the author thinks that this is something sad because he says so right after he gives this statistic about how many people vote. So I'm going to write that on the line. The author feels that it's sad. More people should vote. Go ahead and write that on the line too. Notice how I wrote the words "it's sad" in quotation marks. I did that because these words are directly from the passage. I'm using the quotation marks to show that my text evidence is directly from the passage. So whenever you take words that are directly from the passage, you should put quotation marks around them too, so that people know where those words came from. It also ensures that you're not just making up an answer, that you're getting evidence from the text. Draw a box around text evidence. That's sad. Go ahead and draw a box around that too. The next question is going to be found in paragraph 2. So right here. Headings. What is the heading of this section? Write it here. Boys and girls, do you remember what a heading is? Can you find it on the page? Go ahead and write it on the line. The heading is Teaching Kids to Vote. I'm going to write this in, but I'm going to use quotation marks again to show that I'm getting this right from the text. These are words from the text. They're not my words, they're from the text. Next, it says, underline text evidence that tells what Kids Voting USA does to teach kids to vote. So, right at the start of paragraph 2, it gives us our answer. It says, Kids Voting USA teaches kids that voting is important. The group gives teachers lessons to use in their classroom. So Kids Voting USA is teaching kids about voting and why it's important. And it also gives teachers lessons to use in their classrooms. So let's go ahead and underline the first 2 sentences of paragraph 2. All right, boys and girls, we are going to pause on page 106 for today. We're going to pick up and finish the story tomorrow, starting on page 107. I hope you've enjoyed the first half of this story so far, and I can't wait to come back tomorrow to hear the rest of it. All right, boys and girls, bye for now.